welcome to Shooting the Shit. It's the first one of 2022. Happy New Year, Joe.
Happy New Year to you too, Rachel.
Yeah, lots of exciting things coming in 2022, aren't there?
Apparently.
Yeah, we said this. Do you remember at the beginning of 2021 where everyone was like, well, it can't possibly be any worse than 2022. And you're like, shh, just shh, don't say it. Hannah Wineold here. Hello, Hannah Wineold.
Sorry I'm late. If I'm being totally honest, I forgot what time it was.
So rude. So very rude.
No, I didn't anyway, that I was doing it. I lost track of time.
That's a much more, that's a better way of saying it, isn't it? Well, first of all, Joe, what's your name and where'd you come from?
Well, my name's Joe, funny enough. And originally from Leicester, based in Surrey these days.
And can we just all take a moment to revel in the glory that is Joe's hair, please?
It's so beautiful.
It's
like
so shiny.
It's got its own light source. It's gorgeous.
It's absolutely beautiful. Yes, and we're all in awe. Hannah, what's your name? Where'd you come from?
I'm Hannah, and I am in Sheffield. I am co-founder of Shooting the Shit, director of Grow Traffic, director of Traffic Wonk, lots of other bits. I don't know. And my hair is not luminous. It's
I know. Are you wishing now when we're looking at Joe, wishing that we'd made slightly more of an effort here?
Yeah, I've got my multiple layers on. I've no makeup. Yeah.
I've got gloves on though.
Is it freezing?
Wow. It is so cold. It's so cold here today. Yeah.
Oh,
marvelous. And I'm Rachel Wineold, also of Shooting the Shit fame and Grow Traffic fame and Rabbit fame and lots of other things besides. Anyone got an exciting thing that's happened to them this week? Bearing in mind, are we most focused on first full week back at work? Anything exciting happened this week, last week?
My exciting thing is, it is my first day back I had last week off. Technically, but it's my first full week of being in my new full-time job. So that's pretty exciting.
Amazing. And have you met everybody? Do you feel like you're going to love it? Are you excited?
I am very excited. COVID is obviously not helping with the meeting people. So a lot of Zoom meets. Some people I haven't met in real life yet, but no, it's all good. I'm excited at the prospect of of a bit more normality, maybe going into an office, being around people and being around a few more people when it feels safe. So it is
perfect. Well, in that case, you are our kind of perfect person to be having this conversation with, because today we are talking about women and the world of work and what might 2022 have in store. So I was just saying to Joe before we came on, I was reading a report by the United Nations last week, which said that the COVID pandemic has set back women's equality by about 10 years, they reckon. And the reason for that is because women are the ones who have been bearing the brunt of the COVID pandemic. They've been bearing the brunt of the caring responsibilities. So at one end, we've had children who are off school, isolating, bubbles have burst, homeschooling. At the other end, we've got elderly parents or other relatives who have got COVID or long COVID or whatever. They've needed additional care and responsibilities. And what gives in that situation for most women is work, because you cannot do everything and you cannot be firefighting on every single front, and something's got to give. And usually it's the woman that then will either go down to a part-time role, or she won't take that promotion that she was going to go for, or she won't go that further step in her studies or whatever, and they just hold back. And what's happening is that they're saying that fewer women therefore are going to end up in managerial roles, fewer women are going to be heading up businesses and ended up in those CEO roles, and we've essentially taken a massive step back in women's equality. Yes, Hannah Wineold.
I think 2 points as well I want to make on that is, statistically, as far as we know so far, it's women and women from Black and minority ethnicities who are most likely to suffer the effects of long COVID and are most likely to have most likely to die from COVID. Although no, women aren't most likely to die from COVID. Women in fame are more likely to die from COVID than men, because men are more likely to die from COVID overall.
But statistically, because, you know, they are the ones who are statistically most likely to be living in poverty, to have poor access to education, better diet, you know, better healthcare facilities, all the rest of it. So yes, they are the ones who are not getting to hospital as quickly, perhaps not able to have their vaccinations. I mean, just really basically, I was listening.
Sorry. Even like they don't have the kind of overall general health and well-being to enable them to fight. They don't have a strong immune systems because they live in, you know, inadequate housing. They don't have access to exercise privileges and time to exercise and gyms, and they can't buy, you know, fancy food all the time. They're eating poorer diets, and they're less likely to be believed when they do go to the doctors and stuff. So there's loads of factors.
Absolutely. And I was listening to a podcast the other day that was saying that, you know, Boris was saying over the Christmas, the betwixtmas week, you know, go and get jabbed. Walk-in centres are open. Go and get your booster jab. And actually, that's fine if you are, you know, a middle-class person, or if you're in a managerial, or you're a business owner, or whatever. You can go and spend 3 hours stood in a queue waiting to get your COVID jab at a walk-in centre. But actually, if you're a cleaner, or, you know, if you're in a low-paid job, or if you've got a caring responsibility, it's very unlikely that you've got the ability to go and just wait for 3 hours at a COVID walk-in centre, in which case they're not then getting their jabs. You know, so there's a massive kind of privilege, an underlying hidden sort of privilege to this whole pandemic thing that we're just not seeing, and women are bearing the brunt of it. Hannah, go on.
Point two was that a lot of the jobs that traditionally see women go into have really suffered, like hospitality. So hospitality at that kind of lower level, you know, barmaids and receptionists and waiters and stuff like that, they've seen huge reductions in the amount of staff that they need, huge redundancies, and it is typically women, especially young women, that take those roles. And when things close down, retail, you know, hotels, and when people lock the doors and stop inviting people in, like cleaners, then it is women that are really suffering those low level, really suffering from redundancies from those lower level positions.
Absolutely. I mean, when the first lockdown happened, you know, the first thing everybody did was cancel the cleaner. Well, you know, they rely on that. When Weatherspoons said that they were putting everybody on furlough, but they weren't going to pay them for furlough, go and work at Tesco. You know, it's those supposedly low skilled, which is a bloody insult in itself, isn't it? But it's those, you know, lower level 0 hours contracts, all the rest of it, and women are in the brunt of that. So let's
to say as well. Even if you think about people who are very, very vulnerable, or very susceptible to catching it, who are kind of frontline, yes, hospital workers and NHS staff and stuff, of course, but also teachers and nursery nurses who you know, are in front of lots of children every day and are very likely to catch it, and are therefore more likely to need to isolate, thus losing salaries, and they are predominantly women.
Well, also, I mean, I was saying before, I am a Seroptimist. There we go, first Seroptimist klaxon of the year. And I'm on the PR and marketing committee. And we were talking about International Women's Day, obviously coming up in March. How is the Seroptimist going to market? And one of the things we've said that we really want to do is tell those ordinary stories of normal Seroptimists, normal in inverted commas, Seroptimists, who have borne the brunt of the pandemic. And yeah, immediately our minds went to, you know, frontline NHS staff, the nurses, the doctors, the doctors' receptionists, those people who are on the front line. But actually, the people that kept the country going when we were really in the deepest depths of lockdown were the people working at the one stop and the petrol station and the supermarket down the road. So again, you know, and they are absolutely on the front line because everybody's going in, you know, with or without COVID, with or without masks on, you know, and they're the ones, and they're getting paid absolute nominal wages. Yeah, it's crackers, isn't it? So Joe, let's just bring it back to the personal for a minute. How has the pandemic impacted your work, Joe? And I know you've already said you're changing jobs. How do you think it will impact your coming job?
Like the job I'm going into, well, I mean, listening to all that is a good reminder of how incredibly privileged I am, and I have maybe that I've got the right color skin, maybe, and was lucky enough to have, a first generation to go to university and all of that. So the pandemic is going to be affecting my work in that sort of people contact sort of part that I was saying. And it does make me wonder how quickly I'm going to be able to build all those relationships, get my voice heard amongst people who don't know me. And I'm just...
Does that make you nervous?
It doesn't make me nervous. It makes me feel like I might be missing out on things. I mean, I have FOMO at the best of times. But yeah, it does make me think maybe I'm at a disadvantage starting out in my job that I wouldn't have been if we're having those, cooler, water cooler moments with people in the office that, I'm not getting to integrate into groups, and I'm potentially missing out on opportunities that would further the business. I'm not just talking about personal opportunities and myself and climbing up the ladder. But yeah, I mean, it's like saying my diamond shoes are too tight, though. That's not a terrible thing.
Well, no, I mean, I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying. And yeah, we do have to say, we are highly, highly privileged, and we've accepted that on every episode we've done. But, that actually will impact. Well, I mean, I don't know whether you're going into a managerial role or not, but that whole thing of going into a new business, starting a new job and being able to make relationships, form relationships with people, that's fundamental to whether or not you succeed in your job. As a woman going into a role, you've got to be able to make friends with people, bring them on side, bring them into your vision of where you want to take that job, and then take them along with you. And if you can't, practically speaking, meet up with people, go for a coffee, take donuts in, all of those little things that contribute towards a workplace culture, that really is gonna, impact your ability to do your job effectively, isn't it? And then how will impact how likely you are to succeed. And so, yeah, it's all very well saying, "Oh, aren't we incredibly privileged?" But actually, the implications are real, aren't they?
Yeah.
I think privilege. I am obviously incredibly privileged, and the pandemic, Rachel and I were thankfully able to furlough everybody except Rachel and I, and we kept the business going it was a good 5 or 6 months. And yes, that was an intensely privileged position to be in, that I could still work, I could still get a wage, but it was so stressful. It was so busy, and I was pregnant and getting fatter by the day, and it did have a massive impact on my mental health. So whilst, and Rach, I know you felt the same, and I still feel like I'm recovering from that impact. So yes, whilst I didn't have it bad, I still had it. Everybody still had it, and I think we do sometimes minimize what happens to us, or our own experiences, because it's not as bad as the person down the road. And whilst it's important to be so grateful for what we do have and what we have achieved, and the advantages that we're afforded, I also think maybe let's not minimize our achievements and our hardships as well too much.
Well, I do think so. When we went into that very first lockdown, so thinking back to March 2020, wasn't it? And I was practicing gratitude, for want of a better way to put it. I was every day I was saying, okay, I can't control the situation around me. What can I control, and what am I grateful for? I'm grateful that I've got my house, and I've got my family, and I've got my horses, and I can go outside, and I can, so every single day I had this mantra of, these are the things I can do, and these are the things I have got, and I'm okay, and I'm okay. And I think whilst that absolutely did what it was intended to do and got me through that period, I didn't realize until much later how anxious I actually was, until I was listening. I think I've said this before. I was listening back to a podcast that played a clip from that time, and I felt all of this anxiety. I was in the stable, and all of a sudden I started crying, and I was like, oh my God. And I didn't realize how anxious I felt about it. And even when we were watching when the Downing Street briefings came back on just before Christmas, I was watching one of those and I was almost in tears, because that anxiety, I don't think I had acknowledged it. And so, yeah, when we're talking about, how is all of this going to impact women in the coming year, I think we've got a massive mental health crisis that a lot of women haven't yet acknowledged is coming, because we've just been so head down, get through it, do what we need to do. And, I'm not taking away from men. Obviously, men are having a mental health crisis as well. But, this is a podcast about women. I don't know, Jo, do you see that? Do you see that in your family, friends, colleagues, anything? Or do you feel it yourself?
What the impact of
the mental health?
I think it's so hard to it almost takes, like you say, to go back to that time in March 2020, remember actually how frightening it was, because because we've just had another year of it. I sometimes look through rose-tinted glasses, and there was a lot about, I was in a very different situation back in 2020, and there was some things about the pandemic and the quieting down of life and being stuck at home with my husband was actually really beneficial for my mental health at that point. So there's, that's a different thing altogether. But I think, but then you forget the frightening. You forget that moment I just stood in the kitchen and burst into tears going, we need to stop your parents going to get the papers because they're going to get COVID from the news agents. And having breakdowns over little, things like that. You sort of forget those moments. But it's become normalized that, like you say, I don't think we've dealt with the trauma of what has happened, really. And during the pandemic, I was in a different position. I had already gone through redundancy. I was trying to come out of the pain of that and launch my own business. But it allowed me to, I then went out into the community and volunteered. But I almost can't go to my local Tesco's, because that is almost like PTSD to me, because those early days of queuing up, wearing your mask and your gloves, not knowing what can keep you safe, trying to be responsible for vulnerable people on top of it all. It just brings back horrible memories.
And I think that's perfectly normal. I can remember, the anxiety of the postman bringing delivery when the Ocado man used to bring the shopping every week. And I would be saying to Leon, don't touch it. Let's wash everything. Let's wipe it down and disinfect it. And you forget kind of how anxiety ridden that was, just because we had to get through it. And I'm not denying there were things about lockdown that I really enjoyed. I quite like that, and we had some lovely evenings. It was gorgeous weather. We sat out in the garden, nobody could come round, so we had a great time. But there was all that anxiety goes with it. And I do think, if we're thinking, bringing this back to how is this going to impact the world of work going forwards, as employers and employees, I think it's going to be crucial that mental health is put front and center in this coming year, because on top of absences from COVID and isolation and all the other germs that are going around at the moment, I think there's going to be a lot of absences through mental health issues, and the NHS at the moment isn't there to deal with it, is it, Hannah?
I think, though, that like you were saying about the nice things about lockdown, like, yes, lockdown for everybody was awful, and for some it was worse than others. And our lockdown was, we were trying to have an extension built, and I was pregnant, and the business, and, all the rest of it, and all the anxiety about the impact COVID has on a fetus and things like that. But there were, like you say, some dead nice things about it. We all just kind of slowed down and enjoyed our time together as a family, and enjoyed our home and our garden and things like that. And I think a lot of people have reevaluated the place that work has in their life now, and the importance of relaxing and spending some time just cleaning out your wardrobe, or pottering about your house, or just sitting in the garden for a bit, or whatever. I think we've not, or the people that I speak to at work and at home, so Dave, we've just had the one person I see at home. I think people are establishing that life doesn't have to be 10 to dozen all the time. Like, we will just living life at full tilt, and I think we've slowed down, and I think that's reflected in how people want their work-life balance to be. And we've just done a round of recruitment at Grow Traffic, and what came out very strongly was people wanted a good work-life balance. And this, we've always done flexible working, but flexible working is now becoming the norm and is now becoming expected. And it does give you a better quality of life that you can just pop a load of laundry on whilst you're, waiting for the kettle to boil, instead of having to stand there, not being at work whilst you wait for the kettle to boil. So I think
or
that
spending your whole Sunday doing every single job because it's the only day you've got to do it. Yeah.
So I think that will change the world of work, that now we're more accepting of home life.
Jo?
I think in that way, though, and that's why it's interesting. And again, it might come down to the type of job, and with it comes the privilege, that the pandemic set back women's inequality by 10 years. Well, for some pockets of women, I would say it's improved it, because it's suddenly, when everyone was thrust into having to juggle the kids and their full-time job, the dads and the mums, then there's more understanding around it. And there is something to be said that, when suddenly the men perhaps was equal, having to deal with it as well, everyone was in the same boat. It's like, it's really hard to juggle it all. So you know what? It's all right if you finish at 3 and then hop back on later. So there, perhaps in some industries and some workplaces, it's going to improve that, because it's shone a light on how difficult it is to juggle home and work.
Well, yeah, I mean, I was reading an article. I've done a lot of reading of articles recently, but that was talking about the current model of work that we have, the 9 to 5, 37.5 hour working week, all the rest of it. It was designed for men, and they could do it because they had a woman at home who was doing the childcare and the cooking and the cleaning. So this myth that women have had, and we've talked about it before on this podcast, but of women can have it all. The reason why we're so struggling to have it all is because that working model wasn't designed for women to do the childcare and the home, unless we in turn had a nanny or whatever at home picking up the rest. So that absolutely has been highlighted, and I think you're right, Jo. Men for the first time have seen, or a lot of men for the first time, have seen the pressures and stepped up. What worries me is that we're now in a situation where the workforce, the employees, have realized we need better work-life balance, blah, blah, blah. The good companies are responding to that and putting in place flexible working and all the rest of it. How do we get the less good companies to follow suit and to be convinced? I was reading an article by
another article.
Written by a friend of ours. She's in the group. She's got Natalie Lewis of Dynamic HR, and she was talking about, she published it. I'll put it in the links. But she wrote it at the weekend about how a lot of managers haven't yet caught up with this model of working, and they're still trying to manage people as though they were in the office. So they're still very task orientated rather than overall goal orientated. How do we enable that workforce that want change to facilitate change in employers that are stuck in their ways? Who's got the answer to that one then?
It was a very good article. I read it, and I have to say, going back into the work, because I am a senior manager, so I do have a team and I'm managing people, and it is different. It is different. And doing it remotely, and then how do you motivate people, but also how do you help measure their progress? It is different. But I'm also finding that interesting push-pull of how then, I don't want to ever be back in a situation where I'm 5 days a week in an office, right? Yeah. But also I think there should be a balance, and it's finding that balance that works for lots of different individuals now. Whereas previously it felt like, well, there's one clear rule. It's quite a lot of nuances to manage, and layering on top of that.
You're right.
I was just going to say about the mental health implications as well. Yeah. There's the tail end, another long COVID is going to be that impact of, well, maybe I'll never feel okay traveling into London again and working in a busy office. Maybe that's that, maybe a lot of people feel like that. What does that mean for their job long term? So there's a lot of things to balance as managers.
It's a really good point, that actually, that once upon a time there was one model of work and you fit into it, and now we've got as many models of work as there are people, and as employers and as managers, you know, how do we manage that, and how do we walk that really fine line between people feeling supported and people feeling micromanaged? It's really hard. In fact, we've got this at the moment, Hannah, haven't we? Because we need to account for our staff in a morning to make sure everybody's safe from a safeguarding point of view, because we're all working remotely. So on the one hand, we've got to make sure everybody is safe and alive, but on the other hand, you know, people feel like they're being checked in on when we're like, are you alive? Are you alive? Tell us you're alive, quick, or we're going to start panicking. So it's finding that balance, and that is different from the responses we had in the WhatsApp chat this morning, Hannah. That's different for each member of staff, isn't it? Which then makes it really hard as a manager to find the level appropriate for each person.
I do think, though, there comes a time when you have to, as an employer, do what's right for the company as well. So, you know, in order, you can adapt as much as possible to people. And obviously, if they've got a protected characteristic and they need adaptations, that's fine. But it also has to be fair to everybody. You can't be giving one, you know, you can't adopt absolutely everybody's whim and fantasy. Otherwise you end up, it's chaos. So there does have to be a structure that everybody can kind of compromise with and live on, so like live with. So there is an element of that. But also going back to your point, Rach, about how like the good businesses will do it. How do you make sure the other businesses catch up? And it trickles down. They'll not be able to hire if all the good businesses are offering flexible, you know, all the kind of top businesses are offering flexible working. They'll get the pick of the cream of the crop with the candidates, and it will force the hand of everybody else, because that's the only way that you'll keep your staff force skilled and engaged. People, you'll have too high a turnover.
Yeah, people, I mean, absolutely, employees will vote with their feet these days, won't they? And that's it, they'll go. So I'm conscious that time is marching on.
Mate, I want to say something.
Okay, go on.
I was reading an article about the 4-day week. Well, actually, I was listening to a podcast about the 4-day week. How do you guys, or do you see the 4-day week coming in the next year?
I don't think it'll be in the next year, but I genuinely do think it would be a good thing, because I feel we are approaching that stage in our society where why do we still need that 5-day working
9 to
week
5
model?
Yeah.
It's we've proven it's just not there. Well, I mean, this is the thing. All the tests that have been done show that actually productivity doesn't drop, and in fact, I can't remember which European country it was that introduced this. Productivity rose because people were.
There's several studies actually, Rachel. So the main one in Iceland, they introduced the 4-day working week, kind of in total, and productivity pretty much stayed the same, but people said that they were happier, although they were cramming more work into like their days were longer. So they were still doing the same amount of hours, the same amount of work, but they had an extra day off. And when you actually broke down the hours, they were all in, like, on average, they were working 1 less hour a week, but said that they were happier because they had more free time. So I guess if people want to cram in extra hours, then fine, but you can't do that in every job. You can't do that in nursing, you know, in healthcare, where the days are already 12 hours and they do, you know, 4 on 4 off. You can't do it in retail or where, you know, shift work and stuff, where people need covering all the time. And I think technology has to be embraced to enable people to work 4 days a week, and it requires additional staffing in a lot of places, or the sort of job where you can do, you know, like we could easily do a 4-day week. You could easily cram all your work into 4 days. You could do it in 1 day if you wanted, the worst day you've ever had in your life, and then have 6 days off in a week. So, Jo, would it work in your industry, do you think, publishing?
Yeah, I do. And I think there is modelling where there is a number of people that are 4 days a week. And it's something that I aspire to get to be honest. And I think that idea of working those extra hours, I mean, in some ways I've just done that. So I've just built up to full-time hours because of my own business. And my biggest anxiety over taking this job was like, oh, now I'm 5 days a week. I'm 5, that feels like quite. Last night I had a bit of a meltdown about it because I felt like I was giving away all my freedom, whereas 4 days a week just feels just a little bit more. I've got a little bit more time for me. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes. But yeah, I do see it in publishing that there are people who are 4 days a week, and yeah, I'm going to work towards that.
Yeah, it has to be, and it comes back to that kind of more flexibility, which leads us on nicely to our sort of closing discussion. So I was Googling and I found a wish list of 5 things that I'll put a link to this article if I can remember who the hell wrote it or which magazine it was in, but it was 5 things that they feminists would wish for the workplace in 2022. So number 1.
Can we
go on then. Go on, get it. So there's 5 things. What do you think they are?
Equal
Shout
pay.
them out. Equal pay is one. Equal pay and equal opportunities. So yes, ding, ding, ding. That's one of them.
It's got to be the flexible working that we've just been talking about. Yeah.
Flexible working and flexibility in terms of hours and working location and all the rest of it. So yes, flexible working. Ding, ding, ding. So 3 more to go.
Better paternity leave, paternity pay, something about paternity.
No, there actually wasn't anything about paternity. No.
Tampons in loos.
No, but these are good ones. These are good ones. So paternity and maternity. Yeah. Free sanitary products. So
gin at lunch.
Gin. So one of them we have talked about already. It's about making sure your brain is all right.
Mental health.
Yeah, there we go. Ding, ding, ding. So better mental health support and understanding for mental health issues. So 2 more. What do we think? One of them is about understanding different types of women.
Okay. Inclusive policies.
Yes, there we go. Yeah. Better policies and understanding for intersectional feminism. So making sure we've thought about trans rights and all the rest of it. So yeah, ding, ding, ding. And the last one is a hashtag. It's the hashtag. Close. The one that was about Caroline Flack.
Be kind.
Be kind.
Yes, there we go. Ding, ding, ding. You've got them all. Yeah, be kind. So just better kind of people being nicer to each other and understanding and listening and all the rest of it, which is a little bit wishy-washy, but actually, that is what the workplace needs, isn't it?
Well, I don't think that should just be a feminist thing. I think that should be a human thing.
Yeah, absolutely. It is a human thing.
Be nice to each other.
Yeah, there we go. Now, we have finished talking about that. Rish is not here, but she sent us instructions, didn't she, that we must talk about Molly May, which actually I think comes under that be kind one that we've just talked about. So somebody fill us in on Molly May. What happened? Who is she, Hannah?
Molly May, she went on Love Island, so she's a Love Islander. She goes out with a boxer, Tommy Fury. Tommy Fury. Tom Fury. And she is the creative director of Pretty Little Thing, and she earns a fuckload of money.
She's an influencer. She was an influencer before she went into Love Island. She already had a platform.
That's right.
Yeah, and she's very young. She's like in her 20s. And she said everybody has the same amount of hours in a day. So Beyonce is the same amount of hours as everyone else. Ergo, you're not working hard enough if you're not achieving your goals. And there's been a phenomenal backlash against her, saying that's totally not taking into account her privilege and the fact that some people don't have the ability to work lots of hours to achieve their goals. And if you've not achieved what you want, then you're not just lazy. So
but
that's what
I mean,
she
this
said.
is not her saying, is it? That everybody, you have the same number of hours in a day as Beyonce. That's been a thing for years. She hasn't made this up.
Yeah, but
So why
Christ,
has
Rachel,
everybody?
like kill all Jews is not my saying, but I'm not going around bloody saying it because I know it's not right. Just because it's not her saying it, still came out of her mouth.
It did. I don't know the full context. And it's back to how we were talking just at the beginning. It's like, there are people who are in shitter situations than us. And when you talk out, you try and be as inclusive as your audience as you can, but you never know who's going to be listening or whatever. So I must admit, I haven't got the full context of the Molly May thing because I saw a bit of the backlash and I was like, oh, for God's sake, she's just repeating some motivational speak. And you know what? I coach writers and I'm very, one-to-one. And I too will say, we all have the same 24 hours in a day. Some of them we can't control. And there are the ones that we can. So it's the ones you can, it's down to that, how you want to use it. I'm not saying, and then you have to do these things. It's I just thought it was an almighty backlash over.
But again, though, Joe, I think
Yeah,
that's
but I felt
you're saying to people who have come to you asking for help and
asking for help with time
management
management and goal setting. Yes.
Yeah, and so that's like super appropriate. And this she said it on a podcast about a day in the life of a CEO. So maybe therefore it's motivating to try and get, I am a CEO or I want to be a CEO or whatever. But it is a bit tone deaf that, if it was just a blanket statement, like, there's not, everybody has the same opportunity. Well, actually they don't. And I think when a lot of people are struggling a great deal to make ends meet, 1 in 5 in Britain are living in poverty. People are really struggling. The cost of living has gone up massively. People are working 2 jobs and still needing to use food banks. It's tough out there. And
I get all of that.
Do you think she would have got the same backlash if it'd been Tommy Fury had said that?
This is interesting.
If a man had said it.
Well, but then I suppose, because sports people, not even just a man, a sports person, sports people come out with bollocks like that all the time, don't they? Oh,
this is what I mean. Yeah. I mean, if we got cross every time a social media influencer said something that was a bit tone deaf, I mean, look at all the hashtag boss babe and girl bosses and mumtrepreneur bollocks that goes on social media, and they just churn this motivational fodder out, and it's absolute crap. And I just think, she's just parroting all of this stuff that it'll be all over her Instagram, it'll be all over her TikTok. This is all she sees. And she went on a podcast about entrepreneurs and came out with some Insta entrepreneur-y bollocks. And I don't see how we get, to me, there's more important things in the world. And I do think it's a little bit catty.
That is a bit patronizing, though. That does remove her agency just to say, oh, she'll have seen it on Instagram. But it's really interesting. Like, Boris says shit like this all the time, and no one gets up in arms about Boris. And, like, he's the bloody leader. She's just some lass with an Instagram account and a fat ass, I assume. So, like, that's awful. What an awful non-feminist thing to say.
You feminist.
I apologize, Molly May.
I do think that the backlash is because, you do look and go, if you could, underneath privilege, let's see an incredibly, from the outside does very little to earn her money and says all these things and whatever. And I'm like, I can't get upset about it because I don't aspire to what she has or what she does. So I'm just like, whatever. And you know what? Good on you. I actually think, well, more for people who want to pay her. If you think what she does is shit, well, she's making a shit ton of money and good on her.
Sorry. I don't actually know what her background is.
Well, she actually has a job. She's the creative director of Pretty Little Things, and whether or not that's a made-up, sort of bestowed title upon her or not, she is being paid to do a job. And actually, that's a lot more than a lot of other influencers who are just being paid to make YouTube videos and hold up products. So at least she is, she's working for that money, isn't she? She's done stuff for it, whether or not we agree with what she's done or her choices in
Someone's
life.
choosing to pay her for it. Like, who's the fool in all of this? If you think what she does is terrible, I just thought, I'm so tired of these types of backlashes when there's plenty of other terrible things being said and done that don't get airtime.
And it is always the women that get the backlash. It's always the women.
I mean, she is a bit of an easy target, isn't she? Because she's young and attractive and out there and outspoken and female. She does seem to be an easy target. Whereas bloody Jokovic,
she's pretty and she's blonde.
Like Jokovic has been in the news a lot today, and he said some really vile things about women in sport, and he, still
everyone loves him, and he still gets allowed into Australia to play his massive tournament and all that. So, isn't that nice? Lucky him. No one's really tearing him down. Nothing's going to affect him. He's going to be fine. So,
if we're going to do if we're judging jury, which we are because we're really important women. Are we saying Molly May not guilty?
I think not guilty. I think she's probably not thought about it. But if everybody got crucified for things that come out of the mouth before thinking, I would be bloody hung, drawn, and quartered 1,000,000 times over. So there we go.
Yeah. Someone on Facebook who I can't see says, keep your bloody head still, Rachel.
I know. Apologies. My Wi-Fi's shit and I move too much and I jingle jangle. There we go. And on that note, that is it. So we fixed the world of work for 2022. Lots of things to work at. We've got 5 points. I think for us as managers and as business owners, we've just got to continue working really hard this year to make sure, particularly our women, but actually all of our staff are all right, because I think there's a little bit of a crisis coming over the hill that we haven't yet thought about, and we all need to keep our eye on it. So there we go. Lots of cheery thoughts. Jo, final thought from you this week.
Oh, just be kind. Just end on that. Just be nice. No more nasty things saying about big asses, Hannah. Just tell you.
I know. I apologise. It was a nasty remark. I'll echo that. Be kind.
Yeah. All right. Well, there we go. 3 be kinds. Let's practice.
One big arse,
girls. We'll leave you to decide which one of us has the big arse. We shall be back in 2 weeks' time. Thank you very much, everybody. Start waving.
Bye.